Hey everyone, and welcome to the Retro Channel, and say hello to Henry. Henry is an Apple IIc that was generously donated by Mr. Lurch, whose channel you should check out, and I'll put a link up in the corner there. I believe Henry does work, and well, I don't really know the true story of why it's called Henry, but it came with a label that just said Henry on it, so the name stuck, I guess. Obviously, it does need a little bit of work. There are some spots where it's got sort of a like yellow paint, and the case itself is somewhat yellowed, so it may be worth retro brighting. I think there's two types of different colors for the Apple IIc, the Snow White and the Platinum something or other. I don't know what the exact color should be, but I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to be this yellow. The keyboard's not too bad apart from the space bar, which also has a bit of yellowing, but apart from that, it just needs a good cleanup by the looks of it. Now, admittedly, I don't know that much about Apple IIcs or most Apple products in general. When I think of Apple, I kind of think of maybe not this particular computer, but this style, the whole everything is integrated and it's very user-friendly. But in saying that, you also lose the option of expandability. So it's good in a way and bad in others. I guess for me, this is a good machine because not knowing that much about the Apple II range, apart from some brief use in school, this is a lot easier for a noob like me to actually get into the Apple II range. So that's kind of good. There's a trade-off between user-friendliness and expandability. So that's, guess, kind of what we have here. That doesn't mean that we won't try some upgrades, but it just means that there's not as many options for upgrades. For instance, the Apple II or the Apple IIe, obviously you can add a lot of upgrades to them. This one, not so much, but we'll see what we can do. The first thing I'm going to need is a power supply. Now, I don't have the original power supply, so I'm going to build one of my own just using a 12 volt. This one goes up to 5 amp. Switching power supply, just a little brick. And then we just need to build an adapter because the power supply on the Apple II uses a male, I think it's an 8-pin DIN, 7-pin DIN. And yeah, we just need to convert the DC barrel jack into that 7-pin DIN, and it only takes 2 voltages. So it'll take anywhere from, I think it's 9 up to 18 volts DC. You just need to make sure that the power supply can handle up to 18 watts. So this is 12 volts up to 5 amps, so it's potentially 48 watts. So that should be fine. It's potentially 60 watts, so that should be more than fine. So we'll get this out of the way. And yes, it is stuck to the bench because somebody's put blue tack or something on the bottom of the feet and it's left little spots all over my bench. Doesn't matter, we'll clean that up later. So these are all the parts that we need. Let's solder them together. Right, that should be fine for the DC barrel jack, and good thing I didn't solder the other end on because I forgot to put this over. Cool, that's it. So in theory, these 2 pins should have our 12 volts on it, and these 2 pins should have ground, and everything else is unused. There is, I think the official power supply has an actual earth as well, but we're not going to worry about that for this exercise. It's not a big deal. There's not that much exposed metal on the actual 2C itself, and I don't think there'll be any ground issues. All right, let's do a quick test. So our power supply is center positive, so the positive pin should go to these 2. It's not shorting on the outside, that's good. And then ground should be on these 2. Cool. And it's not actually shorting to that center pin, that's just me accidentally touching the barrel. So that should be enough to get our Apple IIc powered up. All right, bring this back. Plug this in and plug it in here. I haven't connected it to a display yet. We'll just flick it on and see what it does. Okay, well, that's a good sound. It beeps, disk drive spins up. And the nifty thing about these is it does just have a composite video out, so I should be able to just connect it straight here. And we should get a video signal. Or not. Oh, there we go. Might have a dodgy plug. Apparently that's fairly common with the 2Cs to have a dodgy composite out. Just because of the way they designed the plug and mounted it to the PCB. So we'll take a look at that. Let's try a disk. Ooh, check disk drive. How do you reboot these things? Think like that. Check disk drive. So the disk drive sounds like it's working, but it's obviously not working fully. Let's try something else, the Apple system utilities. Sounds exciting. And this plug is terrible. Stay. So open Apple control reset. It's a bit noisy, but it seems to be working. I'm just trying to get close to the microphone, close to the disk drive. Well, that loaded up okay. Alright, so I spent a bit of time testing it out with a few different disks, and it seems to be very hit and miss. So let's open it up and see if the disk drive could use a clean. I'd say that's most likely. It could be that some of these disks are just corrupted and no longer work properly as well. The first thing I want to do is get these bloody feet off. Yeah, they're gross, and they've picked up hair and dust and crap. Get off me. Yeah, I'll replace those after I clean up the case. Okay, to open this, I think there's 2, 4, 6 screws. I'm pretty sure this is just the disk drive. I don't know if I have to take those out as well, but we'll start with the other ones. I think that's it. I don't think we need to take them out yet, but let's find out. The case is definitely loose. Oh yeah, I think there's a tab along the front. Old card comes in handy for this kind of thing. Yep. Now it seems to be stuck around the disk drive. Oh, okay. Here we go. Come on. Stuck on the power switch. Let go. Right. And there's that sort of mesh that you can see from the top, which is, I don't know, I don't really like the look of it. I mean, obviously it keeps all the dust out, especially the disk drive, which is fairly open, so I guess I probably should leave that in there. There is a bit of paint, that yellow paint stuck in it though. This is the internal power supply, so the 2C is a bit weird because it's got an external power supply which just delivers, I think the original one's 15 volts at 1.2 amps or something. And then there's an internal power supply which splits that down to +5 and -5 and +12. So it's a bit weird. You basically end up with an external brick and then there's an internal brick. I don't know why they just didn't go with an external brick that delivers all the correct voltages and use this space for something else. I mean, it's quite compact as it is, so I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, we want to get into the disk drive and take a look. Oh yes, those screws. So they would be holding the disk drive and the keyboard wants to fall out. So let's just take that out now before it does fall out and we break something. Cool. Pretty easy, and yeah, it's quite filthy, so I guess we'll be pulling that apart. In fact, some of the keys are quite crunchy, especially that F key. They're supposed to have a click, but they're not supposed to sort of crunch down. Anyway, we'll have to pull this apart and clean it up. The disk drive. Is that going to just fall out? No. Okay, cool. Feels okay. The belt's got quite a bit of give in it, and it doesn't feel very rubbery anymore. So I might have to replace that. I'm pretty sure I've got one that'll fit. Here's the rest of the board. Ooh. And the first thing I noticed straight off the bat, it's got MT RAM or Micron technology. Or technically that's not an M, it's one of those micro symbols. The symbol that they use for micro. Anyway, that's not great. I'm surprised it works at all with this crap in here. These are notorious for failing in pretty much any 8-bit system that you come across. It's funny that they've also got the Apple logo on them, so I don't know. But I guess they work for now. So there we go. There's our 128K of RAM. Looks like everything else is labeled. So there's our 65C02, which is a variant of the 6502. Is that, I think that's our ROM or monitor. Memory management must be for, it says map, so it must be a keyboard map. ENC, so keyboard encoder. I can see all the little traces going up to this keyboard connector. IOU, I guess input output unit. There's some 74 logic. What is this up here? Character generator. Serial 1, serial 2. So I guess, yeah, they do some IO stuff as well. Some glue logic, which is just called glue, GLU. TMG could be to do with timing. Not sure what TMG is. Could be timing. And this looks to relate to the video output. While we're here, this is the composite video connector. And it does seem to jiggle around a little bit, but it looks like it's connected okay. We'll have a look at that after the disk drive. Neat. So most of this stuff is just to actually drive the motors. A lot of the processing is actually done by... a lot of the processing is done by this. This is actually the IWN, integrated WAS machine. So this is like a one-chip disk controller. So not related to the video out, even though it's sitting very close. There's a little bit of dirt on the head. So just a cotton tip and some isopropyl alcohol. It wasn't terribly dirty. There was only a tiny bit of dirt that came off, but I suppose that's still better than nothing. I guess I should just try it out like this and see if that made it any better. Otherwise, we could look at possibly replacing this drive belt. Maybe that's causing some issues. I'm not sure if there's a diagnostics program for the disk drive, because I assume that we can adjust speeds and alignment and things, but without knowing how to do that, I'm not just going to start twiddling with these. Let's just test it out with those cleaned heads and see if it's any better. Oh, yeah, if the keyboard's not connected, it just goes into a little diagnostic screen. Try again. Check disk drive. So it could be this particular disk. If I have a close look at it, there is what may be a type of mold, which tends to happen on these old disks. So could be this particular disk. Let's just try another one. I don't know, this disc looks okay, but nothing there. All right, well, this one's loading. So yeah, maybe it is just a few bad discs. Yeah, I don't think it's supposed to be flashing like that. And normally this would only show up when it's either losing or getting a signal. So yeah, I think we've just got a bad video port, and that should be pretty easy to fix. I'm not sure about the disk drive. Maybe that's just some bad discs, and maybe it is working okay. I guess I can still replace that belt. I mean, it does look like there's quite a bit of slack, and yeah, like I said, it doesn't have a very rubbery feel anymore, so maybe we'll try that just in case. All right, so it turns out I don't have a replacement belt that'll fit. It doesn't take much to cause it to slip, so I think I should replace that. So I'll source a replacement belt. But I'd be curious to know if there is like a diagnostic program similar to the Commodore 1541 that gives you an on-screen display of the drive speed and, you know, alignment, that kind of thing. So if anyone knows if there is a diagnostic program similar to that for the Apple II series, or even if there's a way to do these tests within an oscilloscope, I'd be interested to know. So yeah, if anyone knows, please let me know in the comments. But anyway, let's move on from the drive for now, and let's focus our attention on that video port. It should be an easy fix. So yeah, there is a bit of play because it's not actually attached. So this outer piece is like the ground, the outside of the video connector, and yeah, it's not actually attached. It can jiggle around. So what I'm going to do is just solder that, just so it locks it in place. I might put a bit of flux or something on there just because it is pretty dirty. I'll put just a tiny bit of flux on there. That was already too much. It should be okay. Solder. Some solder. And so we'll just add a bit of solder between these two spots. All right, solid. Let's give that a quick test. All right, cool, that's better. Yeah, so I can jiggle around the plug and it doesn't mess up anything on the screen. So that was an easy one. And yeah, that's solid now. And I guess, seeing as I can't do much with the disk drive at the moment, I guess we'll turn our attention to the keyboard. And I think I'll just start by taking all these keycaps off, and we can really clean this out. And I guess while we're at it, we should take everything else out and clean up the case and decide if it's going to be a retro bright job or not. It's stabilized at least, that's nice. The shift key is not stabilized. And the shift key is actually bigger than the caps lock key, yet the caps lock key has a stabilizer bar and the shift key doesn't. Go figure. Ooh, is that supposed to come out like that? I hope so. Looks like it goes through there. Yeah, worry about that later. Okay, that just popped out, that's fine. And yeah, it's a bit filthy. I've seen worse. So this thing I think is just like a spill guard. So if you spill liquid in the keyboard, it won't actually leak down. Well, it's supposed to not leak down into the actual key switches. And yeah, it's not in the best condition. And then there's this sort of rubber membrane kind of thing, which is attached. It's actually been poked down in between some of the keycaps to hold it in place. But I do kind of want to remove it. I don't think it serves much purpose. It's probably just like almost like a secondary spill guard, I guess. So I'm going to try and remove it without destroying it. Okay, that's pretty easy. Right. So yeah, I think they melted that, just sort of stamped it into the keycaps because there's little bits where they've been melted. Nothing much else to see here, really. It's possible something's already been spilt in here previously because it does seem to be sort of like a liquid stain on the back of this in some areas, but it doesn't seem to have corroded anything or damaged any traces. It's interesting, there's like a little solder jumper here. So I wonder what happens if you break one and bridge the other one. It looks like it just connects to part of the reset key, so maybe we should try that and see what it does, see if it makes any obvious difference to the reset key. And these bloody things are now falling out by themselves. All right, so I went ahead and disassembled the rest of the computer just so we could give it a scrub in some warm soapy water. I'm just going to try out some contact cleaner in some of these key switches and see if it makes it any better. Might start with this. Ooh. Just kind of work it through. It still feels crunchy, but I think it's actually just the spring. Let's just swap it with this one. Okay, yeah, that feels a lot better. So I think I just need to adjust these springs. There is one key right here. I'm not sure what that would be, probably T or Y. It's actually, it's not, it doesn't seem to be sitting flush to the board. Maybe you can see it better from that angle. So it's actually raised up on this edge. And of course it's right under where this reinforcing thing is. But yeah, it's definitely sticking up more than any other key from what I can see. So it's sort of, because it's raised on this edge, it's sort of pointing off in that direction slightly. And that's probably a bit nitpicky, but I do want to see if I can correct that. It looks like we just need to remove these, squeeze these tabs in. Let's see. Oh yeah, I did feel it move in. Just pushing on it from the other side. Yeah, that's better. It is now flush to the board. I can't even tell which one it was by looking at it. I think it's this one. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's all it needed. All right, it was very minor, but I do feel better about that. Everything is now sitting flush to the board. So I'll get to work on scrubbing up the rest of the case and all the keycaps. And I might just go around and just spray this with contact cleaner, try and straighten up some of these springs and go from there. All right, so I think I got these keyboard springs to a point that I'm happy with. There were quite a few that were just completely bent out of shape, so I'm not sure if somebody has pulled this apart previously and had a go at them, but yeah, they all feel pretty uniform now, and none of them are really getting stuck. So it's just a matter of bending them into just the right shape. They are quite touchy, so if you bend them out too far, they won't click, and you have to bend them back in, and if you go back in too far, then they'll become clunky. So I think this is just right. Well, it's good enough. I did also notice there is I think this is the 80/40 column switch, and yeah, it hasn't been fully soldered in properly. So there's a gap around the sort of casing of the switch. So I think these keyboards were thrown together fairly quickly by the looks of it. Maybe the whole case is bent, but yeah, this is sort of the unreliable switch. I mean, I guess won't really be using it, but it does bug me that it's not quite right. It is really bent out of shape. I'm not sure if that's because they put it in the board without soldering this part in properly and it's forced it out of shape or what, but that looks better. And it seems to work better as well. Okay, so I think that's enough to do with the keyboard. I'm pretty happy with how everything's working now. Hopefully it still works when I put it back in the computer, but I guess we'll find that out. I'm not going to worry about this little jumper here. I am curious as to what it does. It is definitely connected to the reset button. and seems to go through these two, I think they're 470 ohm resistors. I'm not sure what it's supposed to do, but I'd be curious. So if anyone knows, yeah, what those little jumpers do, let me know, but probably shouldn't mess with them just yet anyway. There's definitely something spilt in here around the keyboard area. So this is from the base of the actual machine. So the keyboard would sit in this area, and yeah, there's rust on this RF shield and a bit of corrosion. I don't usually bother with RF shields, so I'm probably not going to put that back in anyway. So here's the top half of the case, and yeah, it came up pretty well, but you can really see that those splotches of yellow paint that are on there, so I'll have to try and get them off. Okay, well, may be able to just scratch it off. Maybe we can carefully use a screwdriver. Right, I think that's about as good as it's going to get for now. Right, so I've just quickly thrown everything back together, and yeah, it's cleaned up pretty well. The keyboard looks great apart from the spacebar, which is still quite yellowed, so I might just retro-bright the spacebar along with the rest of the outer case. Luckily the spacebar doesn't have any printing on it, so what could possibly go wrong? I will say the caps lock key doesn't lock reliably anymore. It seemed to work fine before I sprayed contact cleaner in it, so maybe don't spray contact cleaner in those locking keys. But the keyboard switching key locks reliably, so I might just swap that with the caps lock key, because you don't really need to use these two top keys as far as I'm aware, so that's probably the way to go. But yeah, as this video is getting quite long, I will have to leave those till next time. And also the camera that I'm currently filming on is starting to play up, so I might be up for a new camera, which I didn't really budget for. So hopefully there'll be a video out in 2 weeks time, but if not, I guess you can probably guess why. So at least we got the composite video out sorted. The keyboard's more or less sorted out. It's clean. The disk drive, well, we'll see what a new belt does. We've got a power supply, so there were a few wins here. But yeah, definitely in next video, I will have this case hopefully not looking so yellow, and we'll start looking at some mods for this thing. So yeah, if you have any suggestions, definitely put them in the comments. I'd be keen to hear it. So as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and leave me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Yes.